Welcome back. In the last video, we talked about why we use stories in the field of evaluation and planning. Now, in this video, I want to talk about the 6 characteristics that make a story a great one, according to this emerging field of the science of storytelling. The first one is that stories have a defined structure. Right? And what does that mean? Like the good stories, the ones that engage us, they have at least three stages, right? The beginning, the middle, and the end. And usually good stories, right? In the beginning, they have an exposition where they're showing the condition of and the characters, right? The characters and their world. And the tension level there is pretty pretty low, right? It starts low, as they say. Then in the middle of the story you have some rise in action, right? So we have some crises going on, right? Something is happening, a problem is brewing, or they're facing some difficulty, right? And the tension level start rising until they, at the end of the middle section, the tension rises at its highest, right? The crisis is at its highest level for the hero, or for the characters of the story, and that's where the climax takes place. That's the highest tension level, and then after that it begins to the ending part of the story comes in, and you have a fall in action and some resolution to the story. Something has to happen at the end that brings the tension down again, right? A happy ending, let's say. So you introduce the characters, right? They go through some crisis, right? And the crisis is building and building and building until you get to that climax of the story where the crisis is at its highest, and then there is some resolution, right? And an ending and a wrap up of the story. Stories that don't have a structure like this, let's say a story that ends in the climax and there's no resolution, they leave us hanging, and that feeling of incompleteness, and people don't remember those stories as well. They don't stick to our subconscious very well, right? So remember the structure of the story. Now, one of the most important parts of a story is the plot, right? Stories that connect with individuals or with the listener have a well-established plot. Now, this is the most interesting part about this field of storytelling. So there's this theory by Christopher Booker, right? And he presented this book, right? The 7 Basic Plot. He says that there's only 7 plots in every story, every famous story that's ever been written or told. There's only 7 plots, right? And this person, he's been looking at, this author looked at stories across history, across cultures, different continents, different eras. And the first stories that we find in civilization, right, they have these plots, and these plots are the same as the plots that we have in stories right now, right? And the same plots that are across, that are seen across cultures, and there are only 7 of them, right? So we have these 7 plots that have been repeated throughout history and across cultures, and people didn't meet each other, but yet they connected to the same plots, right? So there's something about these plots he poses in his theory that is very basic to our human experience, right? And these 7 plots that he's found are the following, right? Overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, and rebirth. he poses that there are only these 7 plots in every story that is memorable across culture, across time. And he says these 7 plots connect with us at a subconscious level, or even a more basic level of us as humans. This is so fascinating that I'm going to go over each of these plots. So the first one is the one that we connect to, through our lives, right? Overcoming the monster. And here you have Star Wars, the first 3 movies, right, or episodes 4, 5, and 6, where the cast or the heroes are trying to overcome, the monster that is Darth Vader. Or in space, you have, the hero that is trying to overcome this, this alien, or these aliens. And even in the Bible, right, the story of David against Goliath, you have the hero trying to overcome, this monster. So the plot goes the following. So first there is anticipation, right? That in the beginning of the story, and the hero's call, right? So the hero is somebody that is, unassuming, somebody that, you don't expect to become a hero, but they get a call, some type of call, right? And then in the second part, this is the dream stage. The hero is preparing for battle, and everything is going great, right? Then there is the frustration stage where the monster and the hero meet, and the hero discovers that he's not ready, right? And the monster is too powerful. That leads to the nightmare stage where the hero is almost defeated, right? And there is nothing, the battle seems lost. But then there is a thrilling escape from death, right? And the hero somehow escapes death and ends up killing the monster, right? But usually it is a monster's flaw that ends up killing, the monster himself or herself. And the hero discovers that and transcends, right? It matures and ends up, gets more power and gets to kill the monster. So some of the interesting things about this plot of overcoming the monster is, who is the monster, right? So the monster has some human qualities, right? But it has something that is not human, right? It has something else, maybe a mask that doesn't look human, or maybe a condition that, makes him different than the rest of humans. That's something. That's how we connect to a monster in this plot. And the main character of monsters, the main characteristic of monsters in these stories is that they have, an egocentric personality, right? They're heartless. They only think about themselves. They don't feel the pain of others. And even if at first they seem charming, right? So now you're thinking, oh yeah, this is a very common plot, because we connect to it. A lot of our favorite movies are about overcoming the monster. The second plot, or universal plot, is that of rags to riches, right? And this is, the plot of most, telenovelas out there. Mariela del Barrio. This is a rags to riches story, or Cinderella, right? Or Aladdin. This plot is known to all of us. So in the initial part, there is a miserable state at home and a hero's call, right? So the hero is miserable. It's living a dire condition, right? Of poverty, of deprivation, pain, etc. But then the hero gets a call, right? Something happens. Says, I'm going to overcome this situation. And then goes out into the world and has some initial success, right? And it's going great, but then there is a central crisis. Some dark figure comes in and pushes our hero down, right? It can be, an evil uncle, or the evil aunt, right? It is usually in these 3 examples. And this darkness is pushing our hero back to its miserable condition, right? But then the hero finds something, finds help from someone, overcomes his or her insecurities, and becomes powerful herself, and has a final ordeal, and defeats this darkness, and then there is a final union and completion and fulfillment, right? Usually, the hero that has overcome this adversity comes out at the end and marries, Prince Charming, or the princess, like in these three examples, or the rich guy, whatever. They end up always, right, on top, and fulfilling their life. So how does the hero win usually in this plot? um, they it's they gain independence, right? They go through the hero goes through a transformation where they find themselves and find this inner strength that was always there. We knew it, but the character couldn't find it, and that allows her to overcome the dark power, right? This is the typical rags to riches plot. Another plot that is, basic and universal is the quest, right? The quest is like the Odyssey, or Lord of the Rings is, this long quest, or even Indiana Jones, and many other movies, right? Or stories out there. So in the quest, really, life in there is it starts where um, our hero, right? They're living in this state or city of distraction, right? The state has been oppressive. It's intolerable. They can't. They're all sad, right? Pretty much like in the rags to riches, but this is for a whole town, right? It's not just one individual. It's a whole community that is really in dire circumstances. And the hero gets the call and says, I am going to save this town. I'm going to save this group of people, and there is a journey I have to make, and at the end of the journey is salvation for all of us. And so the hero gets a call, and they set out on this journey, usually with companions, right? Usually with advice from an old character, and they go into this journey, and the journey is full of adventure and crisis, until they get to where they need to get, and they discover that it's not that easy. They have to have a final fight there, because there's a dark power that is trying to keep them from getting to that to the end of that quest, to the finish line, let's say. And when they're very close, they fight this dark figure, dark power, and they're almost there they're almost going to die, but they overcome some final test, and they are successful there, right? And they escape death, and they defeat this dark figure and make it to the end of this quest. And then they grow and they save the town, right? And they come back to the town, and they're hailed as heroes, right? So that's the story of the quest, or the plot of the quest. Another common one is that of voyage and return. Examples of these are, the Wizard of Oz, or I'm sorry, these are 80s references, but Back to the Future, or Big, or if you're into Disney, Alice in Wonderland, for example. So first, there's anticipation, right? So there is the hero is in its own world, and then it falls into another world. For something happens, and they just disappear and go into this other world. They get taken or pulled from their world into this strange world that they've never seen. They don't know what it is. And and once they're pulled, at first they love it, right? There is an initial dream stage where this new world is fascinating and accelerating and exhilarating, and they're happy, and they're everything seems to be fantastic. But then we enter a third stage where the fascination turns into frustration, right? And the hero starts to experience, this frustration, and usually there is a dark figure there, or a big enemy that is sort of trying to push our hero into, or going against our hero. And this keeps going until you reach this nightmare stage where this shadow or dark figure, it's so dominating that it's posing a serious threat to our hero. Our hero is just about to die. And then just as it's at its worst, there is a thrilling escape, and our hero escapes. There is some growth there. It gets more strength somehow, or more, or gets wiser, and escapes this condition. He manages to defeat this dark force or power or enemy, and returns to the original world, right? But they return to the original world having grown, having changed, right? So this is the voyage and return. The other one, the fifth one, is the comedy. And comedy doesn't mean funny, right? This is the sort of the Shakespeare's type of comedy, where comedy, it's not necessarily funny, but what defines a comedy is a plot where, we see the people in a state of confusion, right? So our hero is, there's something that we know has to happen. There's some order, but there's some confusion that is keeping our hero with the other characters to be in line with each other, right? Usually in romantic comedies, we have, we know that these two people are supposed to end up together, but there's some confusion, right? They don't meet. There's someone else that it's, in the way. So there's this confusion, and this confusion gets worse and worse and worse. And there is usually a dark character that is sort of keeping this state of confusion until everything is tangled. And our hero, our couple, let's say, it's they're all at a state that they cannot really they cannot take it anymore. And then at the end, they recognize the light. Something comes up, and it makes them see. The confusion goes away. They defeat the dark, power here, and their perceptions change. And then the situation is like a miracle, transformed, and they can see everything. Confusion is gone, right? And they're happy, and then they can be together, right? This is the plot of a comedy. Now, the darkness in this comedy, it can be it doesn't necessarily need to be a character like an enemy there. It can also be a misunderstanding. It can be something that is hidden or unclear, right? So that is the comedy. The other one is the tragedy. And the tragedy, of course, it doesn't mean that it's sad. In the tragedy plot, we have something, even like the first 3 episodes of Star Wars, right? How Anakin, from a powerful boy, turns into Darth Vader. Or even, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, how this genius doctor turns into a monster and ends up dying. Or how even Icarus or Daedalus, from them being so smart, and they end up dying, or in the case of Icarus, or ends up sad and alone in the case of his father, Daedalus. So anyway, in a tragedy, the first part, in the anticipation, the hero is incomplete, right? The hero is kind of sad. They don't know. They're kind of lost. They're unfulfilled. But some object of desire presents itself. It could be it could be somebody of the opposite sex, it can be some power, right? And usually this focus requires some act that is against the establishment, right? So our hero, right, is powerful, but it's unfulfilled, and they have to do something to get this object of desire that is something a little bad, right? To get this more power, like, and that's something that is not, out of the ordinary. That doesn't make them human, really, right? And they get this thing, like in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is this magic potion, right? That he takes, and he becomes this monster, right? And are a lot more powerful. In the case of Anakin Skywalker, it is playing with the dark side of the Force, right? They get, and this makes them a lot more powerful and takes them closer to the woman they love. But and then they feel powerful. Everything is going great. They're closer to their love, or closer to freedom, in the case of Icarus. And but then there is a frustration stage, right? Things start to go wrong. This power that they've gained, that is somehow not human, it starts messing up with them, right? It starts turning them into somebody they don't know anymore, and they know it, and they try to fight it, but they can't. And until they get to this nightmare stage where things are so out of control that this power that they've gained, it's consumed everything that was human in them, and they go through some final struggle, and all the tragedies end with our hero, who is turned into this monster, right? It's lost all its humanity, and the only way to escape that is by dying, right? So the forces of good are closing in to them, and the only thing they can do to redeem themselves is to die. That is the tragedy. And it's how the monsters are created. The plot of the overcoming the monster, right? That monster usually has a backstory, which is a tragedy. They started as human and became the monster in many stories, like the Star Wars universe. The last one is the plot of Rebirth. And in this, a young hero falls under a dark power, right? This is the Sleeping Beauty, even the Christmas Carol, or the adaptation of Freddie Mercury's life in Bohemian Rhapsody, or The Beauty and the Beast, right? In this, a young hero falls under the shadow of a dark power, and for a while, they may seem to go, okay. Things are okay. It's not that bad, and the bad things to have disappears. They do this bad. Our hero is either asleep or in this bad state, and then it disappears, right? The bad disappears. So things seem okay, but then the darkness comes back in full force, right? And our hero is asleep, or in this state of non-humanity, and this keeps going on. Our hero is imprisoned, and it seems that the dark power that's coming back is oppressing this town, or this community, or this the setting of our story, until there is a miraculous redemption, right? And the dark power is overthrown by our hero, and our hero, usually with the help of some other character, overcomes this spell that has been cast on them, right? Or this dark power that has been cast on them. They overcome this, and they overcome the monster, or the dark power, and everything is good again, right? So the dark power in this plot, it could be coldness, hardness, immobility. They are asleep, they are sick, they are in decay, they're in isolation, they are in torment, in despair, right? Lack of love, until somebody saves them from that, and our hero breaks that dark power and overcomes the monster, and everybody is happy again. So these are these 7 plots, and every story that sticks with us can be traced back to these 7 plots, right? And the things that are common to each of these plots, and again, these plots are universal, right? Across history, across cultures, across genders, across everything, people connect to these plots. And the things that are common about these 7 plots is that in the initial phase, we see our hero and they feel in some way constricted, right? Things are okay, but something is wrong. Something is missing from our hero. And this sets up some tension, right? And this could be, depending on the plot, it could be a call, or it could be, they fall into a different reality, like in the Voyage and Return, or they fall into this dark spell, or in the Rebirth, or they want to get up on the rags to riches, etc. And then in the phase of opening out the senses, there is the call, right? The hero sets up on a trajectory, but it's a long way from resolution, right? And then there is a different phase where our hero is facing a lot of adversity in all of these plots, right? A lot of adversity, and the dark power is oppressing on the hero, and the difference between the dark power and the hero, they become obvious, and the power of the dark power seems more powerful than or greater than the one of the heroes. And then we see a state when the dark power is still dominant, and so dominant that we get to this nightmare stage where the hero is almost dead in the story. But then there is this miraculous escape, or miraculous growth, or miraculous change in the hero's conditions that allows him or her to overcome the monster, or the or the dark power. And then in all of them, at the end, there is and this is very important, there is a moment of reversal and liberation, right? When the hero is not, so the grip of this dark power is lifted, right? It's broken, and the story ends with a final opening out into life. Everything is at last resolved, and things look great into the future, right? Prince Charming marries Sleeping Beauty, or Darth Vader dies, and the Resistance is free. The galaxy has been freed from darkness, and the future looks bright ahead, right? So these are the common elements of the plot, again, but the storyline differs in each of the 7. So these are the common 7 plots, and I wanted to touch on each of them in detail, because remember, the first characteristic that makes a story great is that it has an established structure. It's not just you making up stuff. It has to have a structure in which you begin, you have a middle where the tension builds, and then a climax, and then a resolution. And then these 7 plots, if you can make your story follow any of these plots, any of these 7 plots, it will connect with the audience. If you don't follow these plots, and this is the theory, Booker's theory, if you don't follow these plots, the listener doesn't connect to the story, and it will not stick with them. Okay, so in the next video, the final one, we will discuss some other characteristics of great stories. Thank you for watching. I'll see you.